remember the cold blue glow of my phone screen, the way it lit up my living room like a warning. It was a Thursday evening, one of those late autumn nights where the city feels impossibly distant and close all at once. My phone chimed. I didn't even think to brace myself. Why would I? Messages from my mother rarely hurt. At least, not like this. We just want a quieter evening with Isabel's family this year. Hope you understand. Just that. No preamble, no apology, not even a call. A single text that closed a door with the subtlety of a slammed vault. I read it twice, each word carving itself deeper. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, a dozen replies flaring up and vanishing just as quickly. Of course, I typed back. Simple, neutral, forgettable. But nothing about it felt simple or forgettable. My eyes drifted to the mantel, cluttered with photographs, birthday candles I'd lit for others, graduation gowns that never fit quite right, 100 frozen smiles with me somewhere off to the side, always the background, never the centerpiece, never the reason. And then something changed inside me. There's a kind of humiliation that leaves you numb at first, but underneath, it's fire, cold, clean, absolute. They wanted peace? I'd give them a peace they'd never forget. They think I'll disappear quietly. But they're not the only ones who know how to keep secrets. It's funny, isn't it, how a single text can shatter years of careful pretending. But if I'm honest, I think the cracks started long before that message. Maybe you'd have to grow up as someone's fallback to really understand. To be the one who never quite makes it to the center of the photograph. I was the oldest, always dependable, always there. I got straight A's, took care of myself, made sure Isabel got her lunch when she forgot it, and, God, it feels embarrassing to even say this, I actually thought if I just did enough, one day someone would look up and see me standing there. But Isabel, she was the family's son, 5 years younger, quick to cry, and just as quick to charm her way out of trouble. It didn't matter what I did. At every family dinner, the conversation circled back to Isabel's latest drama. A failed college class, a new boyfriend, a rough patch. I remember this one time, my own graduation. I'd scraped and fought my way through school, scholarships and late-night jobs, just to walk across that stage. My parents sat through my speech, hugged me, handed me a single daisy, and left early because Isabel had called, panicking about her car making a funny noise. She wasn't even stranded. She just didn't want to drive home alone. Every milestone I hit felt like a backdrop for whatever Isabel was feeling. When I bought my first car, used of course, I'd saved for years. A week later, my parents surprised Isabel with a brand new hatchback for her birthday. She just needs more support, Evelyn, my mother told me as if I hadn't noticed. You're so capable, honey. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. That was my job, the one who didn't make a fuss. The only person who ever really saw me was Mira, my cousin, 2 years older, wild and brilliant, and absolutely uninterested in family politics. She'd sneak me cigarettes behind the garage at Christmas, ask about my classes, and sometimes she'd squeeze my hand under the table if she saw me biting my tongue. You always take care of everyone, Eve, she whispered once during Isabel's 3rd tearful birthday meltdown in a row. But who takes care of you? I didn't have an answer. A few months ago, no one knows this, not even Mira, I bought a house. Not an apartment, not a rental. A real sunlit house on the edge of the city, with creaky floors and a back porch that catches the sunset. I closed the deal on my own, didn't even tell my parents. I guess I knew what their reaction would be. A polite, "That's nice, dear," before Isabel's voice cut in from speakerphone, mid-crisis, as usual. I used to dream of finally belonging at that table, somehow becoming necessary. But now, sitting in that empty kitchen, I wondered what would happen if I stopped fighting for a seat in a place that never wanted me. Mira called the next day, voice low and warm. You don't have to beg for scraps, Eve. Set your own damn table. Invite people who actually want to show up. Something in her words landed hard. That's when I did it. I picked up my phone, scrolled through a catering app, my heart pounding, thumb shaking, and booked a dinner for 12. Just like that, the plan was set in motion. If you'd asked my parents, they'd say I had an easy life. That's the story they like to tell anyway. But I grew up learning to survive by becoming invisible, quietly holding the world together for everyone but myself. I started working when I was 15, not because we needed the money, but because I couldn't stand asking for anything. My parents bragged about my independence, but the truth is, they just stopped noticing my needs at all. Isabel? She was a storm in a silk dress, always at the centre of every gathering, every emergency, every conversation. When she dropped out of her first college, no warning, just stopped going, I was the one who emptied my savings to help pay her overdue tuition. My parents called it a family effort, but I remember sitting alone in my apartment that night, ramen going cold on the counter, and wondering if anyone would ever do the same for me. Over the years, it became a pattern. Isabel would stumble, the family would rally, and I would be the scaffolding holding her up. Once she ran her car into a mailbox after a party. My father called at 2 a.m, not to check if I was okay, but to ask if I could drive across town and handle the insurance paperwork so Isabel wouldn't be too upset. There was always a reason to ignore me. When I landed my first real job, after dozens of interviews and months of side gigs, my mother barely looked up from her phone. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Did you hear Isabel's thinking of moving to Portland? Like every milestone was just a cue for Isabel's next act. I learned not to expect applause. I learned not to expect anything. But maybe that's what finally snapped inside me after that text. A lifetime of being the strong one, the fixer, the girl who was never allowed to make a scene. I started replaying every memory. Each time my triumphs were met with indifference, each time Isabel's mistakes became the focus. The times I wanted to scream but didn't. It wasn't just the past that stung, the present did too. My new house, bought after years of planning and saving, sat empty. No flowers from my parents, no welcome home dinner, not even a card. Isabel hadn't even acknowledged it. When my realtor handed me the keys, I smiled for the paperwork, but inside I felt hollow, like I'd finally made it, but there was no one to notice. I think that's why the idea of hosting my own holiday dinner started to feel less like revenge and more like survival. If family is supposed to be the people who make you feel safe and celebrated, maybe it was time to redefine what family meant for me. I stood in my kitchen that night, phone still clutched in my hand, letting the silence fill the corners. Somewhere in the hallway, a glass tumbled from the counter, shattering the quiet, reminding me I was still here, still capable of breaking patterns. This house deserved better than loneliness, and so did I. The day I set my plan in motion, the house felt different. There was a pulse in the air, something alive, anticipatory, the way the world feels before a storm. I'd spent the morning moving furniture, making lists, humming under my breath, feeling, well, lighter. I didn't care that my hands were trembling when I called the caterer. "Dinner for 12, I said. "Something warm, comforting, and could you make the desserts look a little festive?" Mira arrived first, grinning with a bottle of red and arms full of flowers. "This place is incredible, Eve. Why haven't you shown it off?" She spun in the foyer, sunlight catching the edge of her wild hair. I just shrugged, smiling a little. Guess I was waiting for the right people to fill it. Mira eyed me. "You mean people who notice when you walk into a room?" I tried to laugh, but it caught in my throat. "Something like that." I spent the afternoon setting the table, laying out mismatched plates I'd collected from thrift stores and travel. Each one felt like a little memory, an act of defiance almost. Family is who you choose, I told myself, arranging the silverware with care. The invites had gone out to the people who'd actually shown up for me over the years. Aunt Lila, who sent postcards from every city she visited. Uncle Dan, who remembered my birthday even when my parents forgot. 2 friends from college who'd seen me through heartbreak and finals and midnight pancakes. And, of course, Mira, my constant, my witness. No one else. No one who made me feel small. My phone buzzed with excitement all afternoon, everyone accepted. Aunt Lila wrote, "It's about time you hosted. I can't wait to see your new kingdom." Dan offered to bring his famous cinnamon rolls, for luck. The group chat filled with silly memes and "what should I wear?" questions. I felt a warmth building in my chest, part nerves, part relief. Maybe for once I could be at the centre of something good. Mira, ever the chaos agent, couldn't resist snapping a photo of my hands smoothing the tablecloth. "For the memories," she said, and before I could protest, she'd posted it online, tagged me too. I didn't think much of it. Who would care? My family barely looked at social media, except Isabel. Within the hour, my phone lit up. Isabel. "Hey, Mira just posted a picture from your place. Are you having people over?" I read her message twice, feeling that familiar old panic and irritation twist together. My first instinct was to say nothing, to let her stew, just as I'd always stewed on the edges of her parties. But the more I looked at the message, the more it felt like a test. Did I owe her an explanation? Did I owe her anything at all? Mira glanced over my shoulder, reading my expression. "You don't have to invite her, Eve." I let her words hang in the air, heavy. "I know." But something inside me was shifting. This wasn't about payback, not really. It was about being seen. "If you'd like to come, you're welcome," I typed, my fingers almost steady. "This isn't about the past, it's about now." I pressed send and exhaled. Strength, not spite. That was the only way this would work. The next message came sooner than I expected, this time from my mother. "Heard you're hosting a dinner. Why didn't you tell us? Family should stick together, Evelyn." The hypocrisy stung. My thumb hovered over the screen. I didn't reply. Within minutes, my phone began to buzz relentlessly. Voicemails, missed calls, group texts exploding with confusion and, beneath it all, a subtle whiff of accusation. I muted them all. I wasn't going to let panic hijack my own joy. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the neighbour's roof, the house came alive. The doorbell rang in a chorus of voices and laughter. Aunt Lila swept in, wrapped me in a hug that smelled of lavender and old books. "You look radiant, my girl," she whispered. Uncle Dan clapped me on the back, his cinnamon rolls still warm in their tin. My friends squealed over my tiny kitchen and begged for a tour. We poured wine, passed bread, broke into spontaneous dancing as Mira queued up a playlist of every song Evelyn loves but never gets to pick. There were so many moments when I wanted to freeze time. The way the windows glowed golden in the early dark, how my friends toasted me for finally taking up space, the gentle chaos of too many voices at once. The night was just beginning when my phone buzzed again. A notification from social media. "Is this your party, Ev? Didn't know you were celebrating without us." The comment was public. Isabel had seen everything. The air shifted. Mira saw it too. She squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded, but my heart was racing. Minutes later, a text. "We're outside. Should we come in?" I walked to the door, the old me flickering for just a second, wanting to run, wanting to hide. But I opened it. Isabel stood there, her kids bundled in coats, faces uncertain. She looked at me. really looked for the first time in years. Behind me, laughter and music spilled out, bright and defiant. "Come in," I said, voice low but steady. "There's always room for family, but tonight it's my table, my rules." As they stepped inside, Mira's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, her brow furrowing, then caught my eye but quickly slipped the phone into her pocket, saying nothing. The air grew heavier, as if everyone could feel another secret pressing in, waiting to break. I tried to smile, but my mind raced. What was she hiding, and from whom? I didn't have an answer, not yet. If the earlier part of the night had been bright and warm, what followed was all hush and sharp corners. Isabel hovered in the hallway, her kids clinging to her legs, uncertain. I helped them take off their coats, but our movements were stiff. Two people performing a familiar dance, each waiting for the other to miss a step. Dinner was almost ready. The table, crowded and alive with voices, seemed to shrink as Isabel's presence thickened the air. She took a seat at the far end, eyes flicking nervously from Mira to Aunt Lila to me. The others, sensing the change, fell quiet one by one until all that was left was the gentle clatter of silverware and the faint hum of the playlist looping in the background. We were passing the rolls when the doorbell rang again, a triple urgent knock that made every muscle in my body tense. Mira and I exchanged a look. I knew somehow that it would be them. My parents entered as if stepping into a theatre where the play had started without them. My mother's smile was brittle. My father's eyes darted around the crowded table, sizing up the unfamiliar warmth. No one leapt up to greet them. No one made space at the head of the table. They took the empty seats, and for a long, breathless moment, no one spoke. It was as if the entire house was waiting to exhale. I sat, hands folded in my lap, staring at the napkin I'd chosen, blue linen, soft against my palms. My voice, when it came, surprised me, steady, quiet, but unmistakable. "Before we eat," I said, "I'd like to say something." The words gathered in my mouth, heavy and electric. I spent a long time thinking I just needed to work harder to be seen in this family, that maybe if I made myself useful, dependable, I'd matter. But I realized recently that I was never actually invited to the table. Not really. Not as I am. A hush settled over the room. My mother fidgeted with her glass, refusing to meet my eyes. My father's jaw clenched. Isabel went pale, her kids leaning in to her side. I pressed on, breath catching. This isn't about revenge. This is finally speaking my truth. For years you praised me for being strong, for helping out, for not making a fuss. But every time I needed you, I was invisible. I grew up watching you turn my successes into footnotes and Isabel's struggles into headlines. I thought if I waited long enough, you'd notice me. That you'd see me. My voice trembled, but I didn't stop. Did you ever wonder why Isabel kept failing? Maybe she was drowning under your expectations. Maybe we both were. But the only one who ever had permission to fall apart was her. Isabel's head snapped up, tears shining in her eyes. Do you think I wanted to be the center of everything? Her voice was raw, childlike. I never asked for it. Every mistake, every bad decision, everyone thought I'd be rescued, so I stopped rescuing myself. I'm sorry, Eve. I'm sorry I let it be all about me. My mother's voice, small and wounded. We tried to do our best. We only wanted... Aunt Lila cut her off, gentle but firm. I kept quiet for too long. This family's wounds are older than you think. Years ago, you promised fairness. Told us you'd never play favorites, but you did. I watched you do it. She looked at my parents, then at Isabel and me. You wanted peace, but you built it on one person's silence and another's spotlight. That was never going to last. There was a rustle at the table. Uncle Dan cleared his throat, eyes bright. Evelyn has always shown up for us, all of us. Maybe tonight is the first time we're showing up for her. I felt something shift. The people I'd chosen, my friends, my family, my witnesses, nodded, some dabbing at their eyes. It was as if the truth had been waiting in the walls, just waiting for someone to give it voice. My parents sat in stunned silence. My father tried to protest, but the words wouldn't come. My mother looked at me, at Isabel, then down at her hands. The room was quiet except for the sound of someone's fork scraping a plate. I stood up, heart pounding. Tonight I finally built my own table. You're welcome to join, but only if you can see me as I am, not as you wish I'd be. There was a long silence, then Isabel reached for my hand, her grip trembling. "Thank you," she whispered, voice thick. "Thank you for not letting me off the hook, for not letting any of us pretend anymore." Aunt Lila raised her glass. To truth, to breaking old patterns, to finally being seen. For a few moments we sat together in exhausted, relieved silence, the old rules broken, something new rising up in their place. Someone squeezed my shoulder, Mira, I think, whispering, "You did it, Eve. You finally did it." And for the first time, I believed her. After the confrontation, the house was quieter, different. The air was charged not with tension, but with a kind of uncertain hope. People spoke in lower voices, some drifting into the kitchen for coffee, others lingering at the table, replaying everything that had just happened. There were tears. There were also small, awkward smiles. Even laughter, hesitant at first, then easier, lighter. Isabel found me by the window. The world outside was dark, the street lamp painting soft halos over the garden wall. She stood next to me, arms wrapped tight around herself. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We just breathed together in and out, letting the silence settle. She was the one who broke it. "I never thought you'd say any of that out loud," she whispered, voice barely there. "I needed to hear it, not just for you. For me, too." I turned to her, feeling every year of our complicated history press close. "It wasn't easy, but I think it was time." She wiped at her eyes, laughing shakily. "I'm not mad. I'm relieved. Maybe now we get to start over. As sisters, for real." We stood there, letting the enormity of that possibility open up between us, a future without so many secrets or expectations. Later, after Isabel had helped her kids into coats and my parents had left, heads bowed and voices low, Mira drifted over, a half-smile playing at her lips. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, for the first time, I actually am." My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "We're sorry we made you feel invisible. We're trying to understand. Love, Mom and Dad." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the reply button. I didn't write back. Not tonight. Some wounds don't heal in a single evening, and some words need time to matter. People trickled out into the night, each of them hugging me, thanking me. "You made us all braver tonight," Aunt Lila said, holding me close. Uncle Dan pressed his cinnamon rolls into my hands with a wink. "You keep making your own luck, kid." After the last door closed, I walked through my house, tracing the warmth that lingered in the air. Empty plates, half-drunk wine, laughter echoing faintly from the walls. There was no emptiness now. Not in me, not here. I poured myself a final glass of wine and stepped onto the porch, feeling the night wrap around me. Cool air laced with wood smoke, the city lights blurred behind the condensation on my window, as if the world itself was holding its breath for what might come next. I realized I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was thinking about freedom, about letting go, and about what I wanted to build from here. Forgiveness, I was learning, isn't about letting people off the hook. It's about letting yourself move on. I breathed in deep, smiling into the darkness. For the first time, I felt seen, not just by others, by myself. It's strange looking back. Even now I can almost hear the echo of old patterns in the walls. For so long I thought family was something unbreakable, handed to you at birth and shaped like an anchor. But tonight, I learned something new. Sometimes you have to build your own belonging, one honest moment at a time. I want to thank you, truly, for sitting with me through all this. Maybe you know what it's like to stand at the edge of a room and wonder if anyone will ever really see you. Maybe you've been the strong one, the quiet one, the invisible one. If you have, I hope you find your way to the table you deserve, even if you have to build it yourself. If you're listening right now, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever had to walk away from family for your own peace? Or speak a truth that no one wanted to hear? Your voice matters here. Share it below if you want. I promise I'm reading. And if you're wondering what comes next, well, so am I. There are secrets that don't stay buried forever. Some stories, I think, are just beginning. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is rewrite your own story. Sometimes family is who stands by you, not who shares your name. So, thank you for listening, for seeing me, and for being part of this new tradition. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear what happened the summer everything changed again. Until then, take care of yourself, and remember, your story isn't over.